All right, so we're on, and we said we go on at 9:55, so we're perfect. Give everybody a few more minutes.
So we're officially called Coaches Council
Well,
Committee?
let's think about that. I think, like, if you take a look at any of the anything that's in U.S. Lacrosse, it's live, or I don't know what's going on. If you take a look at U.S. Lacrosse, or you even take a look at any other states, as far as high school, usually call them coaches, the Coaches Association.
Coaches Alliance?
You know, the name doesn't matter to me. I threw a whole bunch. If you saw, there's like Coaches Council, there's Coaches Committee, and there's Coaches Association, were the three that I kind of have called it. I do agree that I think we should come up with one name.
One name.
And I don't think anybody's going to care. And if they do, you should have been on. But Coaches Association?
Coaches Alliance?
You want Alliance? I'm just trying to think of what's in the, it doesn't matter to me. You want Alliance? You like Alliance? I keep saying associations. It doesn't matter to me. Coaches Alliance?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look. The meeting minutes, you've had a chance to look at those. I put them in the email, plus it was out. Are we okay with the meeting minutes? I was fine with them. I know there might have been some.
I think we are, but remember I'm a JV coach. I can't vote.
Well, what did we say? Did it say, hang on, let me pull up. Google Drive. Now for coaches meeting minutes. I think it just said that you got one vote per team. It doesn't matter if it's JV or varsity. Meeting items. So we voted to be a part of the AGLA 4 yearly meetings. I mean, I don't think there was anything in here that looked. It was everything that was in here was what we talked about and Jameen went over. Right. So I don't have any problem with anything in here. As far as, let's take a look at voting. The vote is fine at the meetings. Programs can pre-vote or they can attend and vote at the meeting. All votes will be finalized at the meeting. Coaches programs can vote at the meeting on or before meetings. Okay, that was one thing. One vote per program. That's all we said. So it doesn't matter if it's JV or varsity. I think what we should do with that, write that in just as a little caveat underneath, is so it would be, let's say the head varsity coach. When we've got one vote per program, it's got to be coach. So it'll be the varsity coach, and she can, and then, or it would be your next. I guess it doesn't matter as long as it's a coach. Okay. We didn't specify that it had to be a coach, assuming this is a coaches committee and only coaches showed up. But, you know, you'd have one. I would say it has to be a coach within the program itself.
Okay, within the program.
Would be my only addition to that. But as far as the minutes themselves, let's just say I mean, I approve them from last month. I don't think there was nothing in there that was different from what we said.
So minutes approved.
Let's see, coach's agenda. So we have to select a chair and a co-chair.
Right. Chair.
Right now, my suggestion would maybe be to, our next meeting is.
Do we have anybody?
One viewer, so probably Mark, maybe.
Yeah.
So if you just came on.
Okay, I know I'm shooting a messenger here, but
One viewer is me. It says, I don't know.
sorry.
Now it's got 0 viewers, so they're going back and forth. One viewer. Okay. 2 viewers. How can you tell who's viewing? Control room. Okay, who joined us? It's only one viewer now.
Now it's back to 2.
And now it's down to 1 again, so it's back and forth. If you just joined us, if you have my cell phone number, okay, joined us. If you're somehow let us know who is on the call, that's me, I just put hi.
Oh, okay.
I just wrote that to see if they could see that. Or throw us a chat message so we know who this is and we can add you to it. Or Reggie's here also. If you have his phone number, go ahead and send him a text. Either one of us. We're going to keep going. If we have to go back, we'll go back. Not a big deal. So we approved the minutes from last meeting. And then selecting a chair and co-chair, I am suggesting that we push that off until our annual opening meeting in the fall, because there's only 2 of us here.
Okay. So table.
We're tabling the select a chair and co-chair.
Okay.
Is what I would recommend. Okay, who is this? Hey, Heather, it's Jen from Xavier. I can see and hear everything. So Jen is on with us.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen. You go ahead and text me. Do you agree that since there's only right now Reggie, myself, you, and maybe one other person, that we table selecting a chair and co-chair for the 2016-2017 season? I just got somebody too. She agree. So Jen agrees that we should table it. I just have somebody else. I'm trying to find out who that is that just texted. They just said hi. Okay, this is Mark. I have no idea how to comment. It looks like there's a group chat, but I don't know either. That's okay. So Mark, we have suggested that we are going to table selecting a chair and co-chair until the next meeting in September. Mark agrees. Okay, all right, so we are definitely tabling that. We also, both of you did the meeting minutes. We approved them from last meeting. Does anybody disagree with approving of the last minutes? Okay, somebody's calling me. Bear with me. Okay, that was nothing. Okay, next thing we have on here will be to determine bylaw changes that we're going to recommend for the June 1st meeting for the AGLA board. My suggestion for that might be to send out another email that states that we're going to be suggesting bylaw changes and allow everybody to communicate. Maybe there's a better way than just email. If there is, I don't have a problem with that at all.
That actually will be on the agenda for the June 1st meeting at the AGLA.
Right, and that's why we try. I was thinking we could try to get our suggestions to them.
Yeah.
With the understanding, though, that I don't think any bylaw changes are going to be for AGLA for the board made at the June meeting. They're just going, okay.
I think it's just going to be discussed that we actually need them, and we need, ideas from the coaches and kind of restructuring some things that you guys have talked about. Everything from postseason committees, postseason awards, all-star, age, all those kind of things.
Riley can't attend.
Okay.
So then I think maybe somehow send out or create a survey. I'm not sure what the best way to do it would be to compile everybody's information. We can do it through email if we want. I can send an email out, continue to say the chair until obviously, continue to head this up until we vote again in September. And
just everybody can put their
right, and then I can send it out in kind of like a pseudo, this is what we're going to present, any changes, and we just continue to make that. And maybe in the meeting on June 1st, we'll just let the board know that we have started the process of some possible bylaw changes, and we'll get them to them at whatever the date that the board. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mark. Mark just sent ideas.
Yeah, I saw those.
Okay, I'm looking at the other one. So Reggie's got those. He sent them to everybody. So perfect. And I can go ahead and compile all that, keep them all together, and then send a mass one out to everybody before the meeting, and just try to come up with whatever date the board needs the bylaws to go out to everybody so that way they can be approved.
Yeah, because you can get the whole bylaws. Like I have them in a Word document, and then you can start redlining stuff. Oh,
Hi, this is Heather. Hello? Hey, Mark. Want me to put you on speaker? Oh, it's a delay? Okay.
oh, it's delaying. It's the Wi-Fi here then.
It's probably the Wi-Fi Reggie said.
Yeah, it's the Wi-Fi here.
Go mute your computer. I'm gonna mute that. I can mute your computer. Okay, that would be the best way. So what Mark's saying is to make the Google Doc of it, and then we can turn on the tracking and then send it to everybody, and we can definitely go through and everybody can comment at that point.
Google Doc.
Yep, and we'll just we'll send instructions when we send that link out, right?
Send instructions, link out. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so he's saying when we send that out, we would have the bylaws as they are. What do we want to change? Why do we want to change it? What was the third thing? Okay.
So what to change, why, and what the solution is.
And that template that's a template that's on the AGLA website. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll just use that template, make it into a Google Docs, and then we'll also allow for additions, because I believe there might be people that want to add or remove bylaws completely. So that's fine. Right. So yeah. So whatever the date is would also be okay. So and all that's in your email, right? So I don't have to repeat. Okay. Okay. So okay. So everything. So just so everybody knows it's watching, which is only it looks like Jen. Everything that Mark is telling me on the phone right now is actually in the email that he sent. I just can't see the email, so he's explaining it to me.
I see it.
Okay, and Reggie sees it, and we will put that in a Google Doc, and we will send this out to everybody this week. Probably not today, to be honest with you. My day is filled much more. Everybody. So I will get it out tomorrow to everybody and all the coaches that we have right now. We do want to note that Sarah is no longer coaching.
Correct.
And that the contact for Hamilton will now be Caitlin. Is that correct, Mark?
Sarah no longer.
Okay. And the contact for Hamilton will be Caitlin.
Caitlin.
And to my knowledge, there aren't any others. I can add that to the email if people are leaving.
There's one contact taking over for Sarah. I have to go back to her emails because I have to
Is that the AD?
Yeah, I have to add him to our email stuff.
Okay,
I just can't remember his name like that.
So the athletic director at
AD for
Rancho is going to replace Sarah until they find a coach. I know that Sarah stopped over yesterday, gave me all the Southwest Roundup stuff and pictures, and said that he was going to be taking over. He's actively looking, but obviously if we know people, if girls that come home and are going to stay instead of going back, things like that. Okay. So bylaws, that's how we're going to handle bylaws. We'll get that out. We'll get as much done as we can by the 1st, but we don't need to get them to you guys by the 1st.
No,
Okay.
just, it'll be on the agenda. It'll say bylaw suggestions, you know, comments. This is what we're going to do by X.
Okay.
That's what I was looking for. Yep, I'm good.
Okay, so what Mark's saying, which is not in the email, his suggestion to the EC would be, which obviously you hear, would be, and I agree with him, that there needs to be some set dates and set times, because if people know that this is a deadline to turning your bylaws, or this is a deadline for X, Y, or Z, it's right there.
For the bylaw changes.
Right, for anything, but right now we're talking bylaw changes, or for
or anything.
Yes, anything. Like this committee needs to present to such and such, and we need to have this information by X date. Now, obviously, it's a situation where if they don't, what happens? So, you know, how do you put a rule, and what happens if they don't have the rule? We're just gonna jump from 5 to 6 right now. 5 is our activities, what they should and should not be, what they should oversee, identify regular areas of feedback or oversight that we could provide. Once again, I think I would like to put that in an email, because we don't have enough people I mean, we can go off what we have now, and we can gradually get more and more, but there might be some things that people really want to.
Right.
I think we should take over, you know, like the Coaches Association could take over, or Coaches Alliance can take over. And then there's things that, hey, the board needs to take from us, things of that nature.
I agree with that.
Our regularly scheduled meetings, we kind of have it here anyway. We have annual meeting in the fall, second weekend of September. Do we want to look right now and say what date that is? And it's either going to be that Saturday or Sunday, and get it out. My suggestion would be to each one of these meetings be held at closer to the south area, closer in the middle. I mean, I don't want to always have them up here. That's not fair. But I think if we also just assign, like, hey, whether it be Hamilton, Desert Vista, Mountain Point, and Gilbert, you guys decide it's going to be down in your area. It can be at somebody's house. We don't care where it is. It just needs to have Wi-Fi. That would be my recommendation, is that we have a minimum of 4, right? Mm-hmm. 4 meetings that can be held. Yeah.
And if it's up north, we can always have it here, because this place is huge and there's a conference room.
Right. So up north, you know, so we have that. So we decide on that. So the dates for weekend of September 2nd, second weekend in September is, you don't even look at my calendar. August. Second weekend of September would be either September 10th or 11th. And then the next one would be preseason meeting after the convention. So then that would be January or December. The convention is the 22nd. So that was the weekend we were talking. The 28th and 29th is normally when we have our, so we can incorporate that when we have the mandatory meeting for all coaches. Mm-hmm. I think that was the main reason we agreed on that we would have our coaches meeting that weekend also. Okay. So the 28th or 29th of January, 2017. The next one, postseason meeting in April. That was very vague. A pre-postseason meeting. I think that's funny. So postseason.
Because we have to figure out when I don't think we should have games past here. Here, because if it's the first week, what I did, just in case, not concrete, but put on hold that field again in case we can't find a field.
Okay.
It's not, obviously, it's not most likely not going to be there, but if we can't find something, we have it.
Okay.
So it's sitting in limbo. I haven't signed any contracts.
Right. Well, we want to make sure we've got
We've
a
gotta have a
backup.
field.
Exactly. Oh, I don't disagree with that. So do we want to do like April is a very difficult month. April will be a month because a lot of people have their spring breaks.
Yeah.
So it would either be the weekend of the 8th or 9th. It's more, as Mark said, this is more of a check-in, double check that everything's on task. Everybody is where they need to be when it comes to All-Stars, All-American, fields, end of the season. So we can have it the first weekend in April. April 1st or 2nd. We can always change this. Right. I mean, we can, once again, we can change. Third week in, go ahead, Mark. Well, and that's what I was saying. I think it should rotate. We just have to decide how it's going to rotate, such as, do we go alphabetically and the SHAP coaches host it, like they come up with a facility. They just have to let the chair know so they can get it out. And then the next would be Desert Mountain and then Desert Vista. And then, so it goes around,
It just goes around
or we can just put it into 4 sections or something like that, whatever we want to do. But I agree, it should not stay in the same location. I mean, we want to get good participation. The coaches, the one in January, we kind of already know is probably going to be at Xavier. It's always been at Xavier. I don't think that we want to take on where that's going to be for next year. We don't need to. That's not like it's a huge problem. The one where the officials come and that
we could do it
the
prior to
scorekeeping. Yeah, we can. That one there, I think we keep at Xavier for next season. I think that we did not, a scheduling meeting was discussed but not put into as a coaches meeting. That was one of the ones like scheduling meeting, all-star nomination. There were a few that falls into that number 5 category that are going to need to be worked in. The scheduling, I personally think the scheduling should be done in November. And even if we go off of what they had last year, or if a coach is like, I'm going to have 2 JV teams, or we're going to go 2 varsity, or whatever we decide to do as a group in regards to the structure of the teams this year or this upcoming year, we should just go with that. And you can't delete them from the schedule. That's not a big deal. But it's out there. You get it. I know for Desert Mountain, our home games can only be on Friday because that's the only day I can get Copper Ridge. And right now that's the only field I have. That is a semi-legal field to play lacrosse on. And some people might have this, but if we do it in November and the coaches all do it and they get together and the onus is on us, I feel that should be November.
Are we having teams who play down, play up? Tucson's, I think Desert, Gilbert, other teams. I don't know what you guys are going to do with that. So that, I think those have to be, and is Tucson going to come down here more? Are we all going to be required to go up there? Because some teams went, some teams didn't. Which I don't mind going up there. Could care less. Our girls had fun.
Oh yeah, yes. So what Mark was saying, Reggie you're both talking. Thank God I have 6 kids. So what Mark was saying is, like in the bylaws right now, it says it's a computerized system. Is what's supposed to take care of our scheduling and stuff like that, which really would be a scheduling committee. But that'd be when it. So we have got to decide if we want to keep it a scheduling committee or if we want it to be a computerized system, spits them all out, what system that is at that point in time, spits it all out, and then it's really not a committee, it's just somebody taking charge of it, but then all the coaches need to show up to the scheduling meeting. Should be sooner than later. Mark agrees with that. I think it should be November. It can change. with November that we have the scheduling meeting, and then all changes to the schedule, or majority of changes to the schedule with the exception of some, one-offs, need to happen by the first week in
'Cause you've
February or
got
something.
the holidays, you've got spring breaks, you've got all this stuff, and their calendars should already be done.
They're already going to be done by then.
Yeah.
So if you have it in November, that way anybody that needs to talk to in regards to fields, the change happens early, they can get it in. And I've learned most of the places that do the field, if you're like, I have a game this day, they'll work really hard to find you a field over I've practiced, and they go put you in some corner somewhere. Right. But that does need to obviously be discussed and how that's going to be. Now, as far as committees, Mark, I do believe that there are committees that need to be formed that I've heard that I don't know if not necessarily the Coach Association needs to take this on, but the scheduling, that's a committee within the coaches, not a committee within the AGLA board itself. That's what you're saying? A group of the coaches, 3 of them or something, need to take that on, and then all the rest of the coaches get in when we have our full meeting. Is that what you're saying, Mark? Agreeing to?
Yeah, because we had to make a lot of changes all the way through the season, Mark and I. So.
And then uploading to the site, and we had a lot of errors. So I think all that can be decided, but I agree, it could be coaches, or if there's other, people that are interested, want to be on that, help out, that are not coaches, that would be fine too.
Okay.
With the initial cut, but then you got to have the coaches together to figure it out.
Yeah, so all the coaches need to come together, and I think, so I'm not sure when the committee or the group that initially puts all the information in and it just spits it out, but the coaches meeting needs to happen in November. I would say the first 2 weeks in November, because then we get one of the gets into Thanksgiving and then the holiday season from there. Once again, all this can be put out. I don't know if we can really vote on much of anything today, but then just because of the people that we have, the amount of people we don't have here. The final meeting next year would be May 20th and 21st. Or 21st, so the same as this year. It'll be the end of the season, the wrap up, do the bylaw changes, suggestions, everything that goes out before the final meeting for AGLA. Things that worked well, things that didn't work well. There's a lot of people want a lot of changes, which is great, which is fine. It's at this point, I think, a matter of prioritizing the changes and not saying, hey, we're not going to do that, but it might be 2 years down the road instead of next year. I think that there does need to be a plan. I think that we, not only as a coaches committee, not only do we want the board to have their 5-year plan, but we as a coaches committee should have a 5-year plan. Like, okay, this is the ultimate. This is where we want to be in 5 years. I've
been working on a AGLA 5-year plan. It's about 10 chapters. It's got a lot of stuff in it. Just an overall, what I did was take a lot from a lot of different leagues. I took a lot from the Association for Applied Sports Psychology because I was involved in their 5-year plan, and the APA, just getting different, and the WNBA because they've been around 20 years, and there's a big article. I've got some phone calls into some lower end people there that might be able to help me with the AGLA grand vision, because I think we have a lot going here as long as we all do the right thing and for the greater good, and make sure the bylaws are going to be comfortable for everybody, make sure the ages, it's all those things.
Oh yeah, and I think it's an accumulation or an understanding. I think ultimately we want to become an inclusive, am I using that word? Instead of exclusive. Yeah. We want to make sure that, and that's, I think, that's the underlying tone that I've gotten, not only from other coaches that have contacted me, but other parents that have contacted me, that they feel that there's a lot of high school, little cliques here, little cliques there.
Yeah.
And ultimately we want to get away from that. Everybody needs to know about every coach needs to know about what's going on, and then it is the coach's responsibility. And then there's this, to pass that information on. And then there's the understanding that some teams might not have the information because they didn't have a coach. Or like Kyrene, they had a program, but it was really late, so they might not have known everything. So the better that the bylaws are written for coaches, well, we don't have bylaws, but the rules that we're going to have and the bylaws are written for AGLA. I do know from the coaches that I've spoken to, I know they're not on here, didn't really say anything as far as whether they were coming today, so I'm not going to mention names or anything.
Sure.
The concern is obviously the board itself for AGLA. And the question is, are there board positions that are going to be opening up? Is everything opening up? Are people, what's going on with that? Because they want to, I mean, this is what I've heard from like 5 of them. We just want to get rid of the AGLA, the whole board. And I'm like, you can't, then that's I don't think that's the right way to go. I understand that's the easiest way to go, but I don't think it's the right way to go.
So
there's concern in regards to, okay, we're doing this work, but what happens, what really is the board there to do? What are their responsibilities? Which comes back to, as coaches, what do we feel the responsibilities are, and how do we put that forward? And
Sure.
So can I just add a couple of things on? One is ownership, is we need to increase the ownership.
Yes.
So I think, and I'll get to Reggie, but as this 5-year plan is built out, it's got to have a lot of input, and everybody's got to feel like they own it.
Yes.
And then the other is everybody just needs to sit down and read the freaking bylaws.
Yep.
Because there's so much in there that we just ignore or we don't do, or whether it's it's on purpose or whether it's just ignorance, it shouldn't matter. But a lot of things that were done last year did not follow the bylaws. By programs, what they did, who they played, the age of the people they played, a lot of things, weren't brought to the attention of the league. It was just, I'm going to do it and see what happens. Or, and I won't name names of teams, but, the amount of games players played, there was one team where I'm sure some of those girls probably played 30 games.
That's too many games.
So there's just, we got to follow the bylaws we have before we were, we need to change them. There's something to change, but we need to have ownership, and then we need to stick to them individually. I'm responsible for it, and then there's got to be teeth with the board that if, there is a cost if you don't follow them.
Well, and I think that's a little bit of a problem. It's like you can go ahead and set as many rules as we want to set, but what are the true consequences for them, and are those rules a detriment or hindrance, and then how do we even enforce them? It's like, how many girls played, but how many of the coaches are going to get on and count how many,
And that's why I disagree with some who don't say you need a board. You need self-governance, but that's why you need a board in place to really step back, follow the bylaws. And like what part of my plan was as a second vice president, now that I know what's going on, I can check rosters. I can go to more games.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think, and that's why
I can do more things now that I kind of know the law of the land, and I may pop up at your game, after a practice or something to that effect, now that I know more. So I do sincerely believe boards are necessary. I serve this board that we're sitting in right here. So, and I answer to the people. Well,
and I like I said, that's why I said to them, it's not, I think they're just like, oh, just get rid of them, because they didn't do us any good. And and what I said to all of them is that is not the right way to go. I don't believe that's the right way to go. The right way to go is, what positions are open? What do we want for the board, and how do we make the board become more solid? I mean, Mark, you've had conversations with Ginger, and we've had the same conversations, and it's a matter of, okay, what can the board handle? We're like, right now, this year's board is not in position to really. We made it through the season, so let's work on getting the board. And what that means, and who,
because I know Alana's going to leave. Who else? I know that.
Leaving.
Who?
Jim Swanson.
He is for sure. Okay, so you have.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, so you have 2 positions open there.
And I would guarantee you, if you ask if Jared could get himself replaced, he would get himself
Jared,
replaced.
what? Yes.
He was drafted, I think, somewhat against his will.
Okay.
And then
I think he struggled with it. I mean, he's tried, but I don't think it's, it's a passion for you. And we need to find 2 other people that are like Reggie, that's passion and they have interest and they have those, or, a desire or experience on boards. And just quickly, if anybody's saying get rid of the board completely, they're totally ignorant of what's going on, because there wouldn't have been a postseason, there wouldn't have been a awards, there wouldn't have been trophies, there wouldn't have been uniforms, there wouldn't have been a board person, but a board. We can barely show up for meetings, much less take care of all that stuff. So we definitely need a board. We just need, maybe some younger parents, maybe like Tim Jones at Foothills or Dan Hill in East Valley goes across with younger girls that are coming up with a lot of energy, organizational skills. But I do, we definitely need a board. We just need an active, solid board with buy-in, and we need to support them.
And I think that was just frustration. Like I said, I think it was, I know it was frustration, because in the beginning of the season, everybody wanted to get rid of the board, and we hadn't even been doing anything with the board. So I completely agree. I think it was frustration. I think the people that said that are like, yes, if we get changes, a lot of people are concerned about having coaches, not coaches. I say coaches have always been part of the board. It's going to happen. Well, then this coach has access to this. And I said, no, I think that or this coach can do this, or this person knows ahead of time. And I think as long as there's a checks and balance, and if somebody questions and like, hey, blah, 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 you can be like, okay, here, the transparency is going to help.
Yeah, I think also you have to be in tune to your code of ethics.
Mm-hmm.
When I coach Pinnacle JV, I'm with the JV, but we don't talk about any league stuff with the other coaches, period. I don't do that. When I'm on the EC, they know I'm on the EC, and if they're doing something not in compliance, you can ask our WNT chair. She knows, I'll let her know. All right. So it has to be that way. Like when we were at the all coaches meeting, I was EC. I was not representing Pinnacle.
Right.
Because you can't do that. And here I have to separate so much.
Well, and I think that most people will get on. I agree with you, Mark, that Jared would love to get off. I mean, he got on like a second VP, and then became first VP when somebody left, and then Matt died, and then he went up.
Oh, yeah. He's going to let us know on the 1st, I think.
Okay, I'm going to let him.
I think he's going to let us know if that's the case. Yeah.
But so that's the case, and so then obviously the email will go out to everybody stating. I mean, there's a lot of there's so much that we can handle, and it's a matter of how are we going to comprise a list, or so much that's been come up. How do we comprise a list, such as people are talking about just the structure of the league itself. There's the I just had all of them in my head. I do apologize.
Middle school.
Well, then there's the youth, which is in itself. I don't think right now it can come on to this. I think we can talk about it. We can know it's there. We can know that that 8th grade and below. I know Ginger's trying to work with it. I know Jess has got a lot going with it. The idea is that it needs to separate from Jess, but that's not really a high school coaches thing right now. Mm-hmm. We just need to know. Everybody needs to know that it's out there. It's like I am Desert Mountain. I believe in having feeder programs. I believe. So, I mean, I told Jess and Tina that while my kids might not sign up for their sticks, whatever they do in the fall, that's like a fall youth or 7th and 8th grade league. Mm-hmm. If I have 10 girls, we want to be able to play games against you. Mm-hmm. And how that's going to run. And I know they're concerned with it running against the way the boys do it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, the boys are further along than we are, have more participation. So I think that we need to run our youth league in the fall. Mm-hmm. And then those 7th and 8th graders, in order to continue to grow the teams. It's like Desert Mountain this year. I want to have 2 teams next year. Now, the 2 teams might be a 7th and 8th grade and a high school, which then means your 7th and 8th grade become JV. Yeah. Or do they? So I still think that the youth, 8th grade and below, needs to stay separate from the high school at this point in time. As far as the governance, even a separate board being formed at some point in time for that. You had mentioned about, which is league structure, I guess. who goes where, who goes up to what, who's playing what position, or I mean, if you are not what position, but if you are an 8th grader playing on the JV team, the whole JV's got to play at that modified, which Ginger from US Lacrosse almost had a heart attack when I told her that. She's like, there's no way to go from a modified all the way up to a varsity checking, so that person just has to play at whatever at the normal high school levels. But those are also things that we need to discuss, such as what rules within US Lacrosse are we going to hold because it's a safety issue, which you and I were talking about, and which rules hinder the possible growth, which is making a team buy new uniforms, when I honestly this year didn't see any problem with anybody's uniforms. They had numbers front and back for the season itself. I don't care about stripings or whatever. Right now in our league, that I feel would be detrimental, or I actually feel it doesn't cause.
Did Ginger have any comments on that? She's
like, I don't even care if they just need numbers on front and back. She's like, I don't care. And she was like, if there's a team that has a one colored uniform, and you both know you have the same color uniform, it's a communication beforehand. Maybe somebody just has to bring pennies like you used to do way back when in the youth league, and somebody wears those ugly football pennies, But she did. If it's going to cause a financial, if it's going to become inclusive, which if it doesn't say, okay, this if we open it up, this group might be paying this amount of money, this group might be paying this amount of money. Obviously, the more money that's involved, the more inclusive it becomes instead of exclusive. Am I saying it backwards?
If you get this coaches committee going, there's a lot of good information to be shared.
Tons.
I charged $150 per plan this year, and I bought 2 sets of brand new varsity jerseys because I found Epic Sports, and I bought them for each set of jerseys cost me $15 because they're all closeout. So there's some good information out there. Concerning the DD uniforms, so DD's uniforms are illegal. I told them before, and don't do it because you can't have the lightning. But honestly, all that can happen with that is that they give up the first draw.
They just give up the first draw.
The thing that happened. Nobody can tell them that they have to get the uniforms.
Right.
The refs shouldn't be hassling about the uniforms. If I play DD and I say, hey, they got illegal uniforms, then I get the first draw if I decide to do that. But that's the only thing that can happen. So
we didn't do that.
Why, let's not make it a big issue, and nobody should be worried about it unless I want to enforce that as a coach against them, which I don't think most coaches would. Yeah,
we didn't do that when we played DV, JV, referee jumped in. And the look, when they call captains and coaches, the look on the girls' faces and the look on the coach face like they were going to lose a draw, if you had seen the look, like almost tears on one girl, I said, look, no. Let's just draw it out.
Well, even if it is only one draw, it's only one draw. And that's the way it is.
They seemed like they didn't know.
Right. Well, it seemed to take up a lot of the meeting.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to just listen. It's in the bylaws. It's staying in the bylaws because it is US Lacrosse rules. It's a matter of what are the consequences for 2018, and if the consequences are a situation where a team can't play, we need to then think if we want to uphold that rule at that point in time. Right now, for next season, that's not the case. Everybody can do whatever numbers front and back. I would say yes, but I mean, I was telling Reggie, there's half the games we showed up to, and girls are taping numbers because they forgot their uniform or some crazy thing like that. So.
One sideline on this, I think this is what the coaches have to work with the league, is that, and I'm going to be very blunt here, I think the referees forget at times that they're working for the league and they're working for us. And so I think we can be a little stronger with them. No ref should be sitting there commenting on players' uniforms. They should if they decide they need to make a ruling, but not, why do you influence like that? We heard crazy comments when I talked to DB and some of the refs, which had this ongoing dialogue with them. So I think we can be a little stronger with the refs because we pay them. But we don't want it to be adversarial.
So
we need to be able to evaluate some of the things you have on your list. We need to be a little stronger in what our expectations are for the refs.
And I also think that and that's one of the things that Jameen asked me to speak about. Sorry, we're going outside. Beautiful music, but I can't talk. We can't hear. A few of the things that Jameen had mentioned that was one of them. And it wasn't just Jameen. She's just happened to send me a message, and that's why I'm bringing it up. There were other coaches that had the same problem, and I agree. And that it didn't feel like, or nobody knew how to communicate with the officials, or what even if we could communicate, which the only way I knew how to communicate was by asking Tim, and that's because I work with him, on what's Dave's email, and then I got no response. So there needs to be some type of, we need to be able to sit down with the officials and be like, hey, these are the concerns for this season, okay? And how do we address them for next season? How do we make it so there's more transparency between the coaches and the league and what the officials are doing? And I mean, and what that exactly means, how much effort we're going to put into that we can make any type of change type of deal. We might not be able to make the change, but at least I think if people felt that they could communicate, voice their concerns, and then expect to hear from the officials, it's, maybe at XYZ meeting, officials are going to address any concerns that happen this first month of play or something to that effect. I don't know. This is just, I'm throwing something out there.
Yeah, I think if you could generate, here's our concerns from this year, and send that to David and say, here's just what came up in our conversation with the coaches, and then we'd like to at some point talk to you about this. And then I think the other one's the long term is just somehow we need to figure out how to use Arbiter, the ref evaluation program.
This was
way. We used it 2 years ago, but
we used it.
I would have refs go, oh, you gave me a bad mark last time, right before we start that game. So somehow it needs to be anonymous, or and I'm sure somebody's figured that out. So I think we need to talk to them about that. We need to be able to evaluate the refs, and that should have some influence whether they ref postseason or ref the All-Star games.
Oh, because isn't All-Star game? Yeah. However that's going to work, we just need to figure that out. Our suggestions to them, and so on and so forth. Because I know 2 years ago they could use Arbiter. This year they didn't use Arbiter. What was the deal with that? Was it a financial thing? I don't know what it was. But yes, officials came up quite a bit. I will go on record by saying that, which you might have seen the email that came through, that there were several games, which means more than 3 games this year, that my assistant coach and myself, Emily and myself, had conversations ahead of time that what do we do if this game gets out of hand? Will we forfeit in a situation of safety? It seemed that the officiating started off decent, and then by it regressed on several different levels from the point of, and I've said something to Tim, and I've said something to the officials, so that's why I don't have a problem putting it on record. But when it comes to the point where coaches are talking before a game, don't know who your officials are, that if it gets out of hand, what are we going to do? Are we going to pull our girls? Are we going to you've got coaches, even if it's just me, considering pulling girls, forfeiting a game over playing a game because of safety. That's a concern. And I know I wasn't the only one that had concern on safety. I might be the only one that considers forfeiting, but I do tend to go to extremes, when it comes to something like that. So that came up. Jameen also said, hang on, I'm pulling up the text message. I don't know what you meant by this. She has stats for goalies. I will be honest with you, stats themselves, you know how many people complain to me about stats, or what do we do about stats? And there isn't, it says that team had 15 shots, yet if you take a look at the team they played against, their girls only took, 12, or they took 20 or whatever. To be honest with you, until we have a program that allows for checks and balances, means everything, like if there is a turnover, then somebody caused that turnover. The same thing that the NCAA has. And stuff goes up, everything has got to match. If there were, 15 shots on goal and 4 were wide and 6 went in, then the goalie only had 5 saves. And that checks on both ends. So if there's 15 shots on goal, then the other team has got to have 15 shots by their players. If we have draw controls,
Reggie and I,
yeah.
Reggie and I, So a couple of things. What Janine's talking about is in the bylaws right now. It says that the only position that's chosen for the All-Star game based on stats is the goalies, which became an issue this year because there were some, clerical errors, and there were probably, if you took a deep look at the statistics, it's just kind of apples and oranges amongst some of the goalies. So I wrote. I think that the postseason committee should be formulated and make that decision that all postseason players are voted on, goalies or not, because I think, and then Reggie, I've had some good conversations, and Kelly would be a great source, that my assistant coach who came from Utah, because they all of their sportskeepers had to be certified, so they had to have gone to a training, they had to have taken a test, they had to pass that test, and the refs would have a list of all of the certified scorekeepers, and then if your scorekeeper wasn't certified, you lost the draw to start that game. So there's a little bit of teeth in it, but I think, stats right now are all looking more.
Yeah, so that's what's difficult. The stats for 2 years I'm not a fan of the stats. The way they're going. I've always said that. I think
the NCAA doing that?
Yeah.
So the NCAA, I have a program at home, but it's in it might not even work anymore. For one, is it Lotus? Is that a program?
Lotus 1, 2, 3. Those are old.
Yeah, Lotus 1, 2. It's really old. I don't know what the new thing is because I haven't had. But when I was when I was coaching it, what it was is you would have to put the team in. You would have to list all the players with numbers. Yeah. All these would have to be entered in ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So you'd go in and you say a turnover, and it would ask what number. You put the number, and they would ask for a cause turnover. It didn't have to be done live. It could be, but it didn't have to be. You could do it after the game. But at the end, there would be the home team was the only team that put both stats in. Okay, both teams could take stats for each of their, took stats for their teams. Home team puts it in. It could not be released until both teams verified it. Mm-hmm. But that was only after everything matched itself up. So for some reason, like I said, I'm entering it in, and I see that my goalie had 15. You don't even put in how many shots your goalie has. Mm-hmm. The only thing you enter for the goalie are no, you don't enter anything in for the goalie, because when you put a shot for your player, it asks if it was scored, if it was saved, or if it was wide and errant. So you don't even put stats in for your goalie except your turnovers and clears and things of that nature. So there's a whole bunch of programs out there. It's a matter of cost.
Yeah, I think some research, if we could get somebody to do some research into that. I mean, everybody has iPads now to be able to do it that way, where, it doesn't let you do certain things. And at the end, there's big red boxes if you screwed up. So you have to, see it. Because right now it's the paper, and then the paper into the computer. It's problematic. So I think there's some work that could be done there. I think Janine's main concern, which could be, and I in my bylaw change suggestions, I dealt with that, is that the only player that is totally reliant on stats right now for the All-Star and for All-State nomination is goalie. And I just said, let's just get rid of that. Let's vote on them just like we vote on everybody else.
Well, I think there's actually a lot of concerns in regards to postseason to begin with, as far as how we're going to do that, because I know the whole issue with yellow cards came up this year, and it came up on a separate basis because each team, as we know, submits their own all-stars. But there needs to be some there's underlying requirements to be an All-American for U.S. lacrosse. You can suggest whoever falls within those guidelines, such as, I can't remember what it was this year, but I know beginning of the season, before U.S. lacrosse made their changes, my daughter Amber said that she could only get one yellow card to even be considered part of as an All-American. So I do believe that there needs to be some minimum standards that the players have to meet in order for the coaches to even be able to nominate them, such as playing time, such as things that become a safety, that everybody, the things that they can control, that aren't necessarily how many goals they scored, how many ground balls they had. So maybe take a look at what the All-American minimum requirements were as a baseline and see where we want to go from there. But I do believe that needs to be. That was one thing that several of the parents and coaches were livid about.
And I think if you just, that's where, where we haven't followed the bylaws the last 2 years, is there should be a postseason committee put together in November that does all that. And then before the season starts, they come to the board and they say, this is the way the postseason is going to be run, both the championship series, and this is how we're going to select, here's how we're going to nominate, here's how we're going to select. And that could be based on U.S. lacrosse, All-American guidelines. It probably, if we just looked around to other states, we probably could find some good information. I think that's the value of having that committee. And then everybody, the last 2 years, it's just been, it's not going to happen unless we jump in, because nobody was doing it all along. Because other things like, people need to be there face to face to vote. We just got to figure that out, because if not, it's just kind of, if you can't hear the other coaches talk, like the best thing I heard was when Jessica would go, okay, rank your players. You got 3 middies here. Who's your number 1 middy and why? Who's your number 2 middy and why? Number 3 middy and why? That's great information when I'm trying to rank players. But if I can't hear that or I don't participate, then I'm just going to go off whatever. And I think you see biases. We don't like that team, so we're going to rank them low. Or we don't like that coach, or we don't like this. So I think that face-to-face is critical. But I think all that could be decided by a postseason committee that's formed in November, and they work through that, and they have to bring a plan to the board.
Not only do they have to bring a plan to the board, they have to be committed, and I think the board would have to be involved to oversee and maybe even be at one of the meetings or meetings to make sure they go through okay, not necessarily voting or whatever, but they're following the ground rules and groundwork that you guys lay out. I'm willing to do that if necessary to make sure everything is flowing the way you guys want it to flow. I'm here for you guys, basically, as a board member.
And I think actually in the bylaws it says right now that the president of the postseason, or the president is the chair of the postseason committee. Okay. I think it actually says something like that. So yeah, you definitely want EC on that. You don't want, and there needs to be oversight, and there needs to be, ramifications if it's done wrong. So, but I think you got to have that committee, and they also are responsible for awards, they're responsible for fields, all those things to take the load off. 1 or 2 people having to do that, like it's been last 2 years.
So I think we come back down to like the separation. We've kind of overlapped again from the EC board, the AGLA board, and the coaches committee or coaches alliance that we have here. There seems to be a lot of needing of committees with lack of people. My concern is lack of people, lack of knowledgeable people, and how many of those people will overlap and things of that nature. So we might want to consider, once again, separating what is the coaches committee and what subcommittees can be formed from the coaches committee. What is the board and what subcommittees does the board we're actually not part of that. Then the board needs to come up with their committees that they need, which possibly might be something that they can come up with after a lot of the bylaw suggestions and changes and whatever you want to do with that. There might be a better way to come. I mean, we've got a lot of suggestions, and it's just a matter of, okay, these are all great things. What's a coaches alliance? What's EC? Okay, coaches alliance. These are the 15 boards. I'm just making the number up. These are the 15 boards or subcommittees that we feel we need to have. Right now, might not be possible that we have all 15. So what 2 or 3 do we take on that we feel are most important? Scheduling. That's an important thing. Once again, does scheduling come down to being an EC starts it, and then somebody from the coach, the EC has it with one person from the Coaches Alliance as part of it. Does that a co-chair or the chair? And then that co-chair or chair then makes sure that all the coaches come to the meeting. So this is what I'm saying. I think we need to come down with a list of the subcommittees that we feel are needed, and then from there decide whether that's a coaches committee type of thing, whether it's an EC subcommittee, and then if it's an EC subcommittee, does anybody from the Coaches Alliance need to be or should be or we feel needs to be part of that, or is that just information that we need to get as coaches? Mind you, with the understanding that the board itself, members of the board could also be part of the subcommittee, who could also be part of the Coaches Association. That's just where we're at, and that's why I'm saying all these committees, while they're great, subcommittees are great, what are maybe our key 3 to 5 that we need to do combined
Yeah.
for upcoming
One
season.
thing we're doing here at
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, one thing we're doing here, Mark, at just in Desert Ridge, what we might try to do, next year I'm up for re-election, our president's up for re-election. Some of the board members have suggested that whoever is the next president oversees the community and meets with members of the community, but they're not on any real subcommittees. Or if they have to oversee one, they can only oversee one. Because like our president now is on a plethora of them, and it's hard to manage all of that. So what I would suggest is the president can be in charge of the league or a commissioner type role, but that role should be trying to find monies for the league and everything else. If they have to, because of people, be on a committee, then you have to do it.
Like as a caveat.
Yeah, but eventually that president needs to be out in the community.
Right, which is what I'm saying. I think that's the plan. But once again, I think not only for the coaches associate, specifically because that's what we're talking about here,
Right.
the coaches alliance. I believe the chair, the co-chair, and if we need to have a secretary, I don't know, but at least the chair and the co-chair, there should be duties, roles, responsibilities,
Okay.
which with the understanding that those are going to evolve a lot over the next 2 to 3 years, because this is, while it's new, it's not new, it is new. I know we had it, we're going back to it. What did they do before that we want to take with and use because we don't want to reinvent the wheel? And the same thing, not trying to get into the AGLA board, but I do believe you might have more people willing to come forward, and I don't know if they nominate or if you can nominate yourself and say, okay, I would like to be this position or that position, if they had a better idea what was the responsibility, the baseline responsibilities, and then the possibility that you can do the others. I think that would be huge. It's probably in there somewhere. We've probably done that in the past. It's just bringing it back again. That's all.
I wanted to emphasize one thing you said is that I think what's been missing on all of the boards and all of the EC positions is the job description. If you read the bylaws, it's very gray of what you're supposed to be doing. So I think, here's the scheduling committee, here's exactly what the scheduling committee needs to do, and here's the dates they need to do it by. Here's the postseason committee, and here's the subcommittee. Maybe one's an awards committee, so it wouldn't have to be anybody except somebody who could go out and price awards and get that organized and get them there. So I think to have that job descriptions and a timeline tied to it would be like a huge asset. Because right now, if you get on as second vice president, you have no idea what that means, right?
Right. No, I don't. I don't know.
So I think a real clear job description for each of those would be really helpful. And then, in my aborted presidency there, I think we started those committees and we made a school in charge of each committee. We just didn't hold them to it. I think if we held them to that you're responsible for this committee, it doesn't mean you do all the work. But Alice is responsible for organizing the scheduling committee, organizing this. I think there are people willing to do things. I think it's just so gray at times. It's so unorganized, and there's never any dates or any pressure that people just go, I don't really know what to do. So I think we can get more people involved if it's very clear what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't look for the roadrunner this morning.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna, like I said, I think that this might be a little bit of a growing year. You know what I mean? As far as we don't, as far as knowing what everybody's roles and stuff are. The other thing that came up, I'm glad you had me bring this up, was this is huge, and the boundary situation. It's a little bit easier, I think, and I don't know. I'm speaking because I'm not down there, but it's easier down south than it is up north. I haven't talked to. I think the gentleman's name is Tim that but I'm going to talk Scottsdale. Mark, you can talk down south. Scottsdale, I know for a fact that there are 8 girls on SHAP's team, which is fine, that fall within the Desert Mountain boundaries because it's a open enrollment. So they chose to send their kids to SHAP. And so in that case, I mean, my daughter's one of them. She went to SHAP. she is in Desert Mountain School District. I live in Desert Mountain School District. My younger daughter will obviously play for me, but because they go to SHAP, they play for Jess. Or let's say because they go to Pinnacle, they play for Riley. Like, I could choose. Because of open enrollment, I can choose. We all know that. So I think that there needs to be, once again, a suggestion probably to the bylaw changes, and I don't know how to word it, something that says you either have to go, either we go by the boundary that your actual address is in, and those are the teams you have to play for, or you're allowed a percentage or a number, I don't know if number is right, but to play on your team. So let's say you have 8 girls. Let's say we say 50%. 8 girls are going playing for me. They live in the Chaparral School District.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, I can only take 4 of those. The other 4 have to go play.
Mm-hmm.
There's negative to that. I understand that because they might all go to school at Desert Mountain. So now we're telling them they've got to go play somewhere else. That might not be the best. As far as the social. So I understand that there isn't I've been thinking about it for months.
How do high schools work? I'm new.
High schools work
part.
if you live in the high school, if you live in the school district,
Uh-huh.
or if you go to that high school,
Then you play
for that high school. There are cuts, though. If you get cut, you can't go play for another team.
Ooh.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
and
can't.
You can't.
Go ahead,
you can't
Mark.
pick, if you pick and choose, so if it's open enrollment and I'm playing at Hamilton, and next year I just had to open enroll at Chandler High School, I have to sit out a season. And that's
Or you have to get
in our
permission.
bylaws. It's in the AIA bylaws, but we've never held tight to it. The other one that's, and I wrote you several times on this one, that you see is that there were girls playing for Chaparral that played JV in Chaparral, and then continue to play at Chaparral when they should have gone to Desert Mountain, because they were not at Chaparral High School. They were at a charter school, but they just continued to play for Jess. Also, so yeah, there's so much work that needs to be there. The thing is that we've got to, everybody's got to understand what the rules are, and then there's got to be some teeth to it. It just has to be that.
Well, but I do think so. Mark, in your instance, if they switch school districts to play the following year, they've got to ask permission from that coach, or from the AD, from the coach and the AD, whether or not they can play. So for the next school, it's like we were down at Mountain Point, we moved up to Scottsdale, and which is a whole nother reason for that, which is something we'll discuss in a second. And we had to go to the board and say, we've moved, we're in this school district now. Yes, we did play there last year. Now that was a move, so it was different. But even if I didn't move, like this year, Amber went back and forth who she was going to play for once she found out I was actually going to coach. And I said, you have to remember, Jess is going to have to okay you to play for me, to play for Desert Mountain, even though you're in that boundary, because you played for her last year and you're going to Chaparral.
Because one thing I want to know is, like, if we started this for 2017, let's say a new high school comes in, because I've heard Desert something high.
Desert, yeah, I remember.
Tim wants to start a team, so.
But he's worried about the girls going to Pinnacle because they can go to either.
Oh.
See, that's where his concern was, is his girls are going to Pinnacle. He wants to have a team, but the Pinnacle is already established. So that's why they have 2 of the younger teams when he could actually have a team or team and a half.
So see, how is that going to work if those girls are already playing at a Pinnacle or a Hamilton? Or
There's a lot
Desert
to it.
Mountain? That's what I don't that's the part where I'm not clear.
I think this is something that needs to be phased in, and even if that phase this year is, I don't know what that phase looks like for year number 1, and I don't know what the end result of this phase is. And this is something that you said her name is Kelly. Utah, she sent me an email, and Utah had this problem. I can't remember what it said. Utah has this problem, or had this problem, or was addressing the problem because they had open enrollment also, and how they addressed it. And I want to say it was a percentage, which, like I said, it's not fun for the girls. You might lose girls or kids. I don't know what'll happen.
And then what if parents get involved and say, we're not playing for that program? Then what? Then
no. Okay, so now if you're part of AIA, let's say you're basketball. Basketball is AIA. I don't want to play for this Desert Mountain coach. She's horrible. This is horrible. I want to go play for SHAP. They would actually have to leave Desert Mountain School District, leave the school, and go to school at SHAP.
Okay.
So that's where the difference is. So does it come down to, if you go to that high school, that is where you have to play? If you get cut or if you don't like the coach, that's your own darn fault, then you need to unenroll and re-enroll in a different school for the following school year. Do we go off of that? Do we strictly go off of AIA? And in that case, then it just comes down to, in the Scottsdale area, me being like, hey, Desert Mountain, let's look at it not as a sports program. Let's take a look at, we have XYZ to offer your daughter. So that way they actually come to the school. Because you're going to choose to go to a school, most parents will choose to go to school because of the academics, not because of the athletics.
Correct.
So once again, what it looks like, I think it needs to align more with AIA personally. And if you go to that school, then that is who you play for. If your school does not have a program, you've always been allowed to go to a school that's close.
Right.
There was a situation this year where PV was not going to have a certain program, so the girls went somewhere else. PV had a program, and the girls stayed at that other program.
Oh.
Not going to mention names because this school has already been brought up several times. And it's not a negative. I don't want anything like we bring Chaparral up a lot, but I think that we bring Chap and Jess up a lot, not in a negative form for Jess or for Chaparral. I don't think that's the case. She does Desert Sticks. She's got the biggest program right now as far as a youth type of program. Hence, getting feeder programs. I'm doing this little thing in the summer for an hour a night, trying to get the younger kids. We did a free, like an open practice where our girls coached the younger kids. Didn't cost them anything. We got like 20 girls to come out. We want them to stay. That we only advertised at the time to the Desert Mountain, to those youth schools. Now going forward, you can't do that. Mark, you can't do that according to the bylaws for summer, for fall. Those, you need to open it up. You need to make it available to everybody, so that way there isn't, oh, you're coaching these girls.
Right.
Well, Jess does it in Desert Sticks because she opens it up to everybody. And that's what I tell everybody, open it up.
Mm-hmm.
So make it go out on a blast to U.S. Lacrosse. Make it go out on a blast. Open it up to everybody. If you only get your girls, then you only get but building the feeder program is going to help. And the reason that Jess has all these girls is because that's the feeder program that they found. That's the youth program that they found. Yeah. And they went, and they're just going to stick with what is comfortable. That's what humans do.
Yeah. Mark, on the east side, is it more clearly defined, the Chandler district, Gilbert district, Hamilton district? Are they easier defined than up north?
Yeah, it's easier down here. Just, I want to say one thing. I think we need to start with what's in the bylaws and think about, because the bylaws were written 3 years ago to be more like the AIA. So right now it says a student who transfers without a corresponding change to domicile is eligible after the completion of the season in the school year of the transfer. So if I move to that program and I don't move there, I have to sit out a year and then I can play the next year. But that's never been enforced. So I think some of it, how do we not stop growth, A, but how do we make it fair is B. And then I think we probably need to try to maybe work through Ginger to find some corresponding. I think this ties to the 7th and 8th graders. The fact that we had a 13-year-old playing varsity this year. There were a lot of things that make us crazy. The fact that we have Tucson, it's a club. It's not a high school program. They draw from all of Tucson. It's a club. So in the east side, though, so with East Valley Girls Across, we mainly have, although this year we've got Xavier girls, and we've got, some girls from all over the place. So we might have Kyrene, but typically it was Desert Vista, Desert Mountain, and Hamilton. And then those girls would go play at the school that was closest to them or the school they went to. So Corona was always one that I always give DD a hard time because, technically there's some girls that are closer to Chandler, but they were grandfathered in. That's where the program they went to, they got an okay from the EC. So I think as we get more schools, though, it gets more complicated. And that's where, it's both, there needs to be rules, and then there needs to be this desire for the greater good. So if Chandler got a coach and they want to start a program and I'm going to lose 6 girls to them or 8 girls, it just is what it is, because that's the only way we're going to need to grow it. I'm not going to try to coach them to stay. I got to be willing to go, I'm going to take it you know, and honestly, there's some teams in this league that could have 2 varsity teams this year, and they all would have been in the playoffs. You know, if we could just get half of those girls to another school, then the league becomes more competitive and interesting and grows. But right now,
we only have 9 teams, right?
Right. We only have 9 teams, but also what is what does, how many, when you say we could, you know, to get them to other schools, we want them to go to the other schools in a way that's not forcing them to go, but in a way that complies with AIA as much as it can possibly comply with AIA. I would add the caveat to what if the bylaws say that they've got to sit out a year after transferring. I would, but AIA also states in there that they can go and they can petition the board and ask to play, and I would have that as the same thing for us. They can petition,
right.
Because there are some situations where they're not moving because of the sport. They're moving because their parents moved. I moved. I had a different job. I moved up north. My kids shouldn't be penalized and not be able to play for a whole year because of that. So there are the caveats, and that needs to be in there. But then again, it comes down to league structure too, such as, do you have JV, and do we go back to D1 and D2 for? Yeah. I mean, there's the whole structure of the league itself and what that's going to look like, and what ultimately we've got to know what our end goal that we want it to look like is. And because here's my thing, everybody's like D1, D2, based on location, based on blah, blah, blah. Well, what if we did it, and I don't know how that would work, but what if we did it the way that schools do it, such as an AA school is not going to go play in a state championship with a D school. Well, I don't know how low we go here, but and that goes off as sides of school. I don't even know if we can do that based on the way the league is structured at the moment. But, you know, your small schools play the small school state championship. We don't have that many, so maybe we would only divide it into 2, obviously. I don't know, but that's and because of Chaparral, which is a large school, unfortunately for Gilbert is they have a lot of kids in their school. So they would fall in Shap's category. That's just the way it falls. They're going to fall in Shap's category if they go AIA. So once again, that's something to think about on that structure itself. Aligning with AIA, everybody's like, well, we're never going to be AIA. Well, I align with AIA less to be like AIA, but more because I don't like reinventing the wheel.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I mean, it's so complicated now. So Gilbert, I don't know how many girls they actually draw from Gilbert, but they draw from Mesa, they draw from all over the place. Same with us. We have to draw within the Chandler Unified School District, but we're, you know, from 3 or 4 different high schools, and that's just the rule of Chandler. So I think we need to kind of gather all that information and exactly what are we trying to accomplish. You know, I like the idea because Tim's going to come hard this year because he's pretty bitter about last year of Pinnacle stealing all his 7th and 8th graders.
I don't know that.
About, well, what's that?
I don't know that they stole the 7th and 8th graders. I don't know what happened there. I wasn't.
Well, I think he could have been a little bit more proactive.
That was a strong language. They ended up going there when he thought he could keep them in his junior high program. But I think he's going to, you know, he initially said, well, you know, we should have this rule that, you know, next year 7th graders can't play in JV. So I think we need to start thinking maybe there's you know, an upper division, a middle division, and then a younger division. And the younger division are the 7th and 8th graders. But I think the only way we're going to do that, this is like probably sit down, get all of the data and all the information, all the ideas, and a group that's interested sit down for a morning and just hash it out and then come up with some recommendations. So I think all we can say now is this is really an important issue to consider, and the coaches need to be involved, and then I think we need to figure out what's the next steps with it. We're probably not, you know, we're not going to solve anything today.
Right, because I think I completely agree with you. I actually see that I can see that sit down meeting initially 7th and 8th. That's still considered youth. Ultimately, what do we want our league to look like? We want to have a modified program, a JV program, and a varsity program, just like every other sport does. What that looks like, you know, does modified play the same time the JV varsity does? I don't know. Do we get to the point where we're doing it like the boys do it, where the season for the boys 7th and 8th grade ends in April, and you are not allowed, and then any of those kids can, if they want to, up to the team, go and play at that JV or varsity level? I mean, it's hard because you're coming from back east, and I coach varsity, and there were 7th graders. Now, mind you, they had to pass a few tests. There's a test that they've got to pass even here, I do believe a 7th and 8th grader can try out for varsity. If they make it, they've got to pass some physical fitness tests, and then they are also like some physician is involved, and they've got to pass a maturity type test. So they've got to do all that before they try out, can even try out for varsity. But if they pass those, they can try out, and if they make it, they make it. You don't have to play down. And that's where Ginger was upset with the JV, knowing that the kids were younger, playing on JV, and then they had to play down to that modified checking. She didn't agree with.
So they shouldn't have had any checking. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
she thinks it should be at the regular level. It should be
Regular
at the your JV is your varsity level, same exact rules. Just obviously, their girls aren't.
Right.
Doesn't.
Now, can the 7th and 8th graders, let's say they move to that other league,
Okay.
and then they have 8 games, and it's in the fall or early January. Can they then try out for?
Well, and this would be another
JV?
this would be another situation. I see your text. Just a second. Where it would be because this is where the boys are now. That's not where the boys started. The boys started where they had their youth. Their youth was underneath them. It was actually part of high school, and then it separated and became their own youth league. Youth used to be 7th and 8th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders played in the fall, and then until it grew, those 7th and 8th, not 6th grade, but those 7th and 8th graders were allowed to go and try out for your JV varsity and still play in the spring. Now that's not the case. Now they've made it where their season's different, so they don't have that option. They can play, but it's going to be later on. They're more mature. They have had a season underneath, whatever their reasons are. And I think for us, that would be the case where we would start, or my recommendation, and once again, Mark, like you said, we kind of need to sit down and hash it out, would be we have this youth, which is K through 8th grade. They are happening in the fall, whatever that looks like. Right now, it might be a 7th and 8th graders actually have practice, and then we can have some games in different locations. I have an idea of what that umbrella league looks like, what that board looks like, and that board would get them fields, and we would play down in this area, down in this area. But we do have this. So Jen from Xavier is saying, can we have a mix of both, AIA and club rules, where if you go to that school, you must try out for that team. But then if you get cut, you can then go to a different program that falls within your boundaries. That way we're not turning girls away from the sport, yet still have strict rules. That's come up too.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, that's come up too. If you get cut from that team, you can choose another team to go to.
We didn't cut.
I mean, I don't know of anybody that did cut
We've never
because
cut.
they just add teams. They just, okay, I'm just going to have 2 JV teams instead.
Yeah, we've never cut.
But once again, Jen, I think that's a great idea, and that might even fall in with, listen, you can have 1 JV team, 1 varsity team, and that's that. Up to you how many you keep on your roster, obviously. And if you happen to get cut, then you can go play for somebody else. That's something great to bring up and vote on. And I would definitely add it to the email.
Jen, keep that thought, because that could be an agenda item for upcoming EC meetings.
So Mark's phone died. So he's just saying not recreate the wheel is all he's saying. Mark will be around all summer, and yeah, I did hear he is not selling his house, so we may or may not leave. We never know. But yeah, Jen, I completely agree with that, with having that as an option for people to vote on, and maybe being, like I said, being part of the first couple year plan as we progress. But I think if we definitely need to have a goal, a 5-year goal or a 3-year goal in mind, and where we want to be, and then the steps to get there. So
I think the big things that's the biggest hot button, and I think the postseason All-Star game, all those things were the biggest hot button so far. Where else were we at?
So we had feeder programs, feedback and voting for the officials, which we touched on. Coaching education requirements. That's a tough one to have it requirements. I think we can have requirements, but here's a thought to propose to the EC. If there was requirements that have any additional financial burden, for lack of a better word, on the coaches besides having to pay the $50 to be a U.S. lacrosse coach, U.S. lacrosse, that maybe that is something that the EC needs to take a look at what they're charging. And okay, coaches, we need you to be, we need you to have the background check. We need you to be this and this. And
I think we should.
And the board is saying these are the classes that we're offering. Now, mind you, back east, to be a coach, you've got to take these certain classes over a certain period of time, and you have to pay for them yourself.
Yep.
But as you paid for them, your coaching fee also was increased.
Yeah.
You completed this, then you get this. It's like a different level, which brings me to, well, just I'm going to pin this, and we'll come back to it. I feel that the next big board, big subcommittee that the EC needs would be somebody that oversees the boards.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
Somebody that oversees the boards. Because I'll be honest,
you have to have a governing body to oversee. Like here at Desert Ridge, there's a governing body that oversees us as a board to make sure that we're in compliance, doing the right things.
Right.
So there has to be that.
And that's for all the different teams. The boards for all the teams is what I'm saying. I'm going to use Mountain Point, not because they're not on, but because I was there. When I was there, Venison, I think his name is. I could be wrong.
Vincent.
Whoever, no, it's not actually Vincent. I think there's no T or something like that. Vincent or something. The person that is running that board ran it when I was there. The problems that they were having, which is when anybody questioned where money was going, there was a huge problem. Nothing was ever transparent. I didn't like it. My girls played, Amber played a year and Nicole played a year, and we left. It was horrible. Didn't like the experience. Nobody's going to do anything because nobody's going to take it over. But in the same sense, if there is a board, if there's somebody that is setting parameters, setting rules, setting guidelines, whether that be the EC setting guidelines for this board that then has to be overseen, I think that will help immensely. I think we don't have a team fold, Mountain Point fold, and the girls go wherever they went for legitimate reasons. For the reasons of, listen, I questioned why boys and girls are charging the same amount, yet the girls coaches are sharing fields and getting half of pay. We all do way more work than we're ever going to get paid for as coaches. But this might also help kind of like not be the New York Yankees or the Minnesota Twins type of deal. So that would be my recommendation to help understand how much everybody is paying. You don't necessarily need to know how much the coach, it's up to them how much they pay their coaches.
Yeah, I think
where
Jared brought that up about
a transparency.
Yeah, he brought that up. The other thing with just real quick about the coaching thing, there was something about the gold standard, all those
right
things.
I got those
and
things.
I'm hoping that our league can be a leader for that.
And I think that taking a look at the gold standard, I think that would be a great, and Jen, if you haven't seen it, if you go to US Lacrosse, or if you just send me a text and remind me, I believe that I have a copy of it. There's a gold standard board outline thing under the coaches. Yeah, that's already there. I'm not sure if everything, after reading everything in it, is something that we as a league want to even get to. But there are some really good areas that I think would be great as a league that we got to, and they even show some different steps we might want to take to get there. So once again, it's a difference between what, as the coaches alliance that we have now, what is our responsibility, and what are we saying, hey, we'd like to see the board take over? Because that's where we are. We can't tell the board what to do, but we can be like, hey, we are going to take accountability for these items here and to bring it to the gold standard. But we're recommending that you take this part of it, and they can do what they want with it, of course. But once again, it's making that division, and right now it's very hard. Both the meetings we've had, Coaches Alliance, have been very hard to not talk about the AGLA board as a whole. I think once that EC, once the board is a little bit more solid, is a lot more solid, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the coaches will feel better. I think the whole situation with the MALs and such, I think we can take a look at what the Coaches Alliance is doing, and each team gets one vote, and maybe do some type of adjustment to the way the voting structure is now at the EC, just because of, going into next season, Pinnacle will be allowed to have 4 votes, MAL, varsity, and 2 JV teams. Whether or not they have 2 JV teams, we're not sure. That, once again, comes down to where me, I'm going to have 2, even though I might have a 3rd team. So it's kind of like, why does one program get more of a say than another program? So that's something to think about. The education program itself, December 10th, there's 2 women that are coming in that they are willing. They're 2 coaches. Hang on, let me get you their names. I was supposed to get the information. They didn't give me a little flyer to hand out yet. As soon as I do, Kara Mupo and Bridget Bianco. They're both with Philadelphia Force. Graduated from Northwestern. Jen, you might know of them. I believe that they coach for William and Marion Richmond now, but they're Division I coaches that are willing to come out and be like $50 a coach to go and have a coaching whatever. I don't know what that means. I don't even know if it's anything that would fall under something that we want, because I also have information from the ASU coaches who are willing to do like a 3-series thing where the first session would be free. The next 2 sessions would be like $125 total, so like less than $75 a coach. And it would walk them through different things. I don't have the outline for that either.
That would be smart.
I think I think ASU would be smarter.
Because we're trying to mirror them.
Well, they also want to have 5 girls. They want to give 5 Arizona girls scholarships for a couple different reasons. 1, they need the support. 2, they're in Arizona. 3, it allows them to have more money for their other scholarships if they give Arizona girls, because it costs them less money.
We should mirror them.
And Richmond, if this is Richmond and William Mary, it's nice to have them on the back burner, get confirmation from ASU. But if we can't get confirmation from ASU, they're willing to do it. They're obviously willing to do it because they want to see what's out here also. And they want to improve the coaching to pull from out here. But once again, is this something where, if we're going to do the ASU thing as coaches, as a committee, do we sit down with them and be like, these are the minimum requirements that we all the coaches need to meet, so we can guarantee that if you're going to do this on a yearly basis, we're going to continue to come back once a year and get this certification that's non-certification. I don't know if it necessarily has to be U.S. lacrosse. So there's a lot of that, the coaching education requirements, on the basis that coaches might be. I remember when I first started coaching back east, went to upstate New York, and they only had a high school program, and I had 3 girls, and they said, if you want your girls to continue to play, you need to start and coach the youth program. And I'm like, what the hell? I don't know anything about this sport. And as the varsity coach, she's like, I'll teach you, just show up at these things, you'll learn some of the stuff, and I just want you to try to relay it. You're just a body that relays it down to the youth. But we need to have our varsity coaches educated not only in the skills, okay, but also in safety and what is it's hard because you can't control what other coaches do, with the exception of the EC saying this is not allowed and we're going to suspend, or we're going to not allow, or blah blah blah, whatever for next season, or whatever the situation, the ramifications are. It's, once again, it comes down to a coach says something nasty, cruel, mean on the sideline. Who does it come down to? Does it come down to the EC? Does it come down to the coaches council, coaches associate, or whatever we're calling ourselves? Does it come down to just the officials? The officials here, they give a card. I've given cards. I've given red cards, and then I've had my rear end shoot out because I've thrown coaches out because they're like, you're biased, and so on and so forth. And I was fine. It was fine. But I also don't. Everybody's a little bit different. So we've got to figure out where the line is that we can control and that we can't control. And I think if everybody is mandated to do the exact same thing on a yearly basis, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, everybody's hearing and doing the same thing. And if they don't do it, they can't coach. Once again, it comes down to everybody's afraid to mandate something like that because, and I'm not saying that's the best thing either, but because, well, then we don't have enough coaches. And if we don't have enough coaches, I've said that if there's a program that has plenty of girls that there's a coach that doesn't know what they're doing, I think I could get 2 or 3 coaches from the league and be like, hey, we can give you drills, we can work with you, because we want to see it grow. And I would hope that would be the same for anybody in the league, because all it's going to do is benefit us. So that's my 2 cents. Jen, I don't know if you have anything. I didn't see anything more from Jameen. Riley didn't send anything besides saying that she was going to make it. Rachel, hang on, let's see here.
I don't have anything yet.
Mark, Rachel. Okay. So, Mark, Gold Stick standards. The components of certification are current U.S. Lacrosse membership, level 1, course 1, level 1, instructional clinic, how to make proper contact, which is online, positive coaching alliance, double goal. So once again, it comes down to, like Jen, like you said, can we mix AIA and club rules in this situation? Where do we mix, or do we mix U.S. lacrosse standards? And where does that fine line fall to still growing the sport? And how I just think a phased approach for a lot of what we're talking about, a lot of everything that everybody has said is really great stuff, and it's where we need to be. Everybody just needs to realize that certain things need to take certain priorities.
Yeah, certain things need to be now, and then certain things need to be phased down the line. I think the ASU thing's a really good thing if we can mirror them. The hardest thing, what I found in this league, is you have the girl who just wants to play with her friends, and she could care less about going to a D1, D3, even a community college. She just wants to hang out. And then you have the girls that are very, very top-notch that desire to play at a D1 or D2. And how do you coach to that? How do you form the league around that? That's one thing I'm trying to wrap my head around.
So you get that in any. I went and took a look at. I paid more attention to Becky's, the team I used to coach and play on, and totally forgot about the league that we played in. Mm-hmm. I went back and looked. It was very similar to Shaq season this year. There was maybe one team that even gave us a problem. Mm-hmm. Now they got better as the years got better because they started having youth programs. But then we had the option of, okay, now that we were in Section 3, so now you go to Section 5 Class C school, and they're gonna have different you can go and you can play other competition that's better. We don't have that option here, but you might have a team that's consists of 20 girls that are exactly that way. They're just playing with their friends. Mm-hmm. Majority of times that's what happens with the girls at this level at this point in time. But you might have one that's really good. Mm-hmm. And that's the one that needs to keep playing. That's the one that can go and play club. And right. So there isn't, I don't think you need to worry. I think we need to less align if we're going to realign the league, less align it with how good the teams are. Mm-hmm. Because you have to remember, Jess went through 2 years of not even making it to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And now she's back again. Okay. But you're going to go through that series. I mean, Desert Mountain 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, 2 or 3 years ago, they were in the finals. Yeah. This year we won a game. You would have thought we won the championship, but we won one game by one. So all that, once again, you get feeder programs, it's going to change. We need to figure out what the structure is. Is it better to go off of size of school? Can we not do that? I mean, some of the things are like, okay, we're going to choose this, but then how do we enforce it? And so if we go off of size of school, how does that get enforced with boundaries? Yeah. So
it's a lot.
There is a lot, and that's what I'm saying. They're phased approach in what can we do? What can we just say, hey, these are, as I have on the agenda, on the radar that we're working on. Mm-hmm. We don't have an end goal for it yet. We don't know what it looks like. This is what we want this to look like. We're not sure how to get there. This is where we need people, Hang on. Jen, sorry. Jen agrees with whatever I said. I don't remember which one it was, but thanks, Jen. Mark, Less than 5% of players play nationally, play beyond high school. Absolutely true.
Mhm.
Absolutely true about that. And I coach mainly because I've seen my daughter
Mhm.
and I've seen my son play to get to I saw a change in them when they started playing because they wanted to go on and play in college,
Mhm.
as opposed to going to playing because they enjoyed coming to practice, whether it be because of the friends,
Mhm.
whatever it might be, because you start coming to practice because you enjoy playing, because you enjoy playing with your friends, your coach.
Mhm.
It makes you, whatever it is for those 2 hours or hour and a half, whatever you use each night, they're going to become a better player.
Yeah.
And
And
your
better
athlete,
life lessons too.
right. But I mean, obviously the coaching is a little bit different. Some coach were, hey, we want you to go and play at the next level. I had 3 girls come up to me this season that never played lacrosse before. That's like, I'm thinking that I'd really love to maybe go on and play in college. And my statement to them is, I will do everything I can. We'll contact the coaches. I've got contacts, but you need to continue to come to play because you enjoy playing, because you're going to not want it at a certain point in time. In AZ, the main focus should be the players who are not going to play college, because that's the vast majority. And I think,
Agreed.
I mean, Mark,
Yeah.
I think that's the vast majority for most schools.
And that's what I was trying to wrap my head around. I know it's so much different than back east, especially what I'm watching on TV. How do we structure all that as coaches? That's what I was trying to figure out.
Well, and I think back east, because you're like, well, back east, more girls like Penn Yan, Brighton, St. Anthony's, these New York schools, what is it, Annandale or something like that in Maryland. They're the ones that are going to have 4 and 5 girls. You're going to probably have a majority of those girls go on and play Division III or above.
Mm-hmm.
You might have 4 of those girls not go play.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking, you might have 5 teams in the entire state of New York, which if you compare it by percentage, 5 teams out of the 250 teams that they might have, only 5 of those teams actually have multiple players going on and
I
playing.
see. Okay.
So in that league that Penn Yan plays, there might only be in the other 8, that's my son, there might be the other 8 schools that are in their division might only get 2 kids that go on to play, and they might only play Division III for all you know.
Okay.
So that's not odd. What's different is the fact that there's multiple teams that are good that can go and play each other. You know, when you're playing states, when you go and play states back east, you're playing teams that you didn't play during the season.
I got you.
We don't have that option yet. Now, I know Riley's working really hard up north in Flagstaff, where there might be a team or 2 at the youth level, which would be really nice. You have a youth games up north, you have a youth games down in Tucson, and we have a youth game centralized here. We go, and Tim does his thing, and he's out Avondale. Now we're starting to grow it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But with the growth of the sport is that varsity or a coach or somebody that is going to be dedicated to having a youth program. And I don't think at any point in time can we ever disregard that.
Yeah.
There will be a point in time where those youth programs are going to be established.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have your youth people. Those youth are going to have their own individual boards. When that's going to be, I don't know. But until that time, it can't be the main focus, but it's got to be just mentioned that, hey, youth, what are you doing to help improve your youth? What do you need help with? Is that something you can do? How do you do it? Do you realize that 5 girls is better than none? Next year you might get 7, and 3 years from now you might have a full team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think to move the meeting on, and to kind of wrap it up, the minutes that need to come out will be, this is what we spoke about, and then the attachments to them would be that document for bylaw changes, additions, the thing that you would put on there.
What I can do is just give you like
Bullet points that you write.
points
Perfect.
that we talked about.
And then I can kind of re-listen to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Take a look at what Mark wrote. Send that to everybody. Have a date. It's hard because June 1st is right after the holiday weekend. So
Right.
I don't know if we'll set that as a date for the bylaws because you don't need it by then.
Right.
But at least we can have some, when I go to the meeting on Wednesday, I can let the board know that we've got some suggested changes that are coming. These are questions that the coaches council have, or coaches, what do we call it, alliance, have, that I don't know if you can answer now or if you, whatever. So we can come up with any questions we have for them, let them know we're having the bylaw changes, and find out whenever that deadline is for the bylaw changes. And not that we would need to have a meeting. I think we just need to have a consensus that everybody is okay with the certain bylaw changes that we're going to propose. How we do that right now, I know there's a lot of crazy different ways we can do it. I don't know what it is, but it'll be something that everybody, it'll be very transparent. We can make a Google Doc for it, and then we can definitely, if there's like a survey, or maybe we even just use SurveyMonkey or something like that. I don't know what we'll use, but everybody will be able to see that who was for it, who wasn't. So if there's any question like, hey, I didn't approve that. Okay, you didn't, but 8 other coaches did, so that's why it passed. So there isn't any question if anybody has their own agenda or not. I don't want that. That was the whole point of this, is to make this as transparent as we possibly can be.
Okay.
And if there isn't any way, if anybody feels differently that things can be done differently, I understand this agenda could have gotten out earlier. It didn't. I mean, I can make a zillion excuses and they're all legit, but it didn't. Did the best I could with this and what I had. My son, listen, I'm going to tell you, I left Friday, Amber winning Defensive Player of the Year, to watch my son go play in the NJCAA's finals as the goalie. They beat a team with 4-point-some seconds left to go that they shouldn't have ever beat. They went to the championship. It snowed like you wouldn't believe. And he made a huge first shot in overtime. It went to OT, made the save, passed it down the field. They scored in OT. It's like an athlete's dream, to be the goalie that makes a save. And then he got Defensive Player of the Year. So I had a great weekend. So I was not thinking of AGLA at all.
Right. Congrats.
So that's my little thing.
And I will, just on an AGLA note, today's the 22nd. Probably by Tuesday, I will have the AGLA agenda out, just ideas. Give me your ideas. I need your ideas by Friday. And then I'll throw an agenda up like I did last time. Because I'm pretty good at getting that out.
So Mark just said, and I missed it because I don't know why. So Jess has her, however, 100 players in her sticks, which is what North and South. I don't know how many Tim has. Mark is saying that East Valley Girls Lacrosse has 100 players for the summer.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, it's coming. And like I said, I have 4. My little girls are like 9, 10, 11-year-olds, but I really haven't put it out. I'm going to put it out again. My goal was to have 10 girls that want to go for an hour on Tuesdays in the summer. And then my goal for the fall is to have, I would love to have like 30 girls, enough to have a 7th and 8th, to play 7v7 for that 7th and 8th grade league. That's my suggestion for 7th and 8th grade. So, but I think we need more. It's like Jenny or Xavier. I don't know what that means for you. I don't know how you can grow the sport in your area and who you pull from, because you pull from everywhere. But that would be doing a Phoenix type of league. But I don't think you should do it alone either. Just like I don't think anybody should do it alone if they feel like it's just too much of a burden. I think there's enough coaches in the league that can be like, all right, let's brainstorm. And what if you just hit these 3 middle schools and these 3 elementary schools, see who you can work with, and see if you can get a corner of a field for once a week is for 6 weeks or something. And I'm doing my stuff under Desert Mountain Girls Lacrosse. Just because I'm not going to do it under me personally, right. And it is the feeder program for it. Eventually, when it gets big enough, well, it will be Desert Mountain Girls Lacrosse. It'll be Desert Mountain Youth Girls Lacrosse. But once again, we're not big enough to do that. And it would still be a nonprofit. It would still just be for Desert Mountain. But I think everybody says that they're in it for everybody to help grow the sport. It's a matter of what that means, and that everybody sees that maybe people that are doing this, I mean, even Mark, I mean, your East Valley Girls Lacrosse, I don't know if it's a non-for-profit or not, but that there's a possibility that if Gilbert did theirs and let's say, so like you said, somebody else opens up in Chandler and they take part of your girls, that initially, maybe the first couple years, it's going to seem like it reduces your income or the amount of players playing in your league. But I think ultimately, and it's proven, Mark, it's proven with you doing the EV with your East Valley, those girls used to come play for Jess. Jess lost it for a little while, but now you're up to 100. It actually grows the sport, which in turn for East Valley Girls Lacrosse, their club version, for Desert Heat, which is a club, for Riley, I can't remember what she's calling her, the club. Those are separate. Those are separate from anything, and it's actually going to grow each of those club travel teams for those girls that want to do more than, Reggie, like you were saying,
Right.
than just go play with their friends. It's actually going to grow them in the long run. It might reduce them, but it's going to grow them, and that's just kind of how it works. The stock market crashes, and then it goes back up again.
And then we have to get the word out
Yes,
that
and
these clubs exist.
right, and it's got to
That's
get
where-
out universal.
Yeah, that's
It's
where
like-
I could come in and say, hey, people, this is what we have, and hit the high. That's why I think the president or commissioner takes a different role and has to go be a face of the league. So it's my 2 cents.
All right, so I think we're gonna
Wrap up.
wrap it up. You can shoot email to everybody. You can shoot to me. I shoot it to the AGLA coaches, I think is what it is, coaches at Gmail. We will open up. So this week you've got a lot of stuff coming. Everybody's got a lot of stuff coming to them. If you see other coaches, if you talk to other coaches, if you play with other coaches on Storm, if you whatever, just let them know we've got a lot that happened and is going on, and to look for it. And this was for them. So if any of them are like, well, I didn't know about, I don't like to hear that. And I don't want to be like, hey, it's your fault. We can't have it. We've got to try to get them informed, bring them up to speed, but also be like, hey, they've got to do their part. And trust us, we all know we all probably put more hours into lacrosse than we do our regular job. Some week I feel like that during the season. So thank you and everybody that's still here, the 4 of us, and the few people that put their messages in.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. Stuff to go out. Meeting is June 1st for the main meeting. I will be there. Anybody else is more obviously can show up. And then our meeting right now the first meeting is in September. But we will definitely have contact before that and know that we need a coach for, well, the AD is looking. We're going to add him to the list. We'll introduce, but we need a coach for Rancho and any feeder programs that want to help getting started up either summer or even in the fall. I'm cool with trying to brainstorm about that and see what you can do with it's great. I'm using my girls to coach. Right now in the summer, I'm using Amber because she's my daughter, and I'm not. but you can use your girls to coach, and they actually love it. They might not really coach the way you coach, but they love it.
Cool.
All right, thank you. We'll get this stuff out this week to everybody. All right, now I have to turn this off and stop this. Stop.